India's chairman of selectors, MSK Prasad, has hit back at cricket legend Sunil Gavaskar for his comments, calling them lame ducks. MSK Prasad said that the comments were unfortunate, but it unified the Indian selectors. Gavaskar's comments also drew reactions from a number of people, including Sanjay Manjrekar, who tweeted in his response that the integrity of the selectors matters more than their stature. Gavaskar's comments were made in a column after the selection of the Indian team for the West Indies tour. Viren Farao joining me live from the Mumbai newsroom. Viren, of course, now what we have here is a very strong response coming from India's chairman of selectors, MSK Prasad, who has hit back at Sunil Gavaskar. So take our viewers through the entire sequence of events. What happened, what provoked Gavaskar's comments to begin with, and what does the response say?
Well, there's so many parts to this story, but it all began with the selection of the Indian team for the series against the West Indies. And a couple of points that Sunil Gavaskar was talking about in particular in his column. Number one being Virat Kohli's captaincy. He says, why weren't questions asked of Virat Kohli? And why did the selectors decide so quickly that Virat Kohli would continue as captain? And not just that, he goes on to say, Sunil Gavaskar does, that immediately after the reappointment of Virat Kohli, he was then called into the selection meeting to decide who would be part of the team for the series against the West Indies. And using that, he calls the selectors lame ducks, basically saying that they cannot stand up to the stature and might of people like Virat Kohli and Ravi Shastri. Now, to which, for the first time, we've seen a response from MSK Prasad, who is not best pleased with the terms that are being used here by Sunil Gavaskar. And he says that, while he respects the opinion of selector of former players, of legends of the sport like Sunil Gavaskar, in terms of the content of what he said, the adjectives used for the selectors, that has not gone down well at all. And MSK Prasad reiterating yet again that when teams are selected, whether it be for the senior team, the Indian team, or the India A team, which is the bench strength of the Indian team, those are done in consultation with the coach, captain of those teams. And and he said that there's nothing new about that. Yes. So again, he's hitting back at what Sunil Gavaskar says in terms of calling them lame ducks and virtually saying that they get bullied easily by these players who are clearly of great stature in sport.
Right. So, Viren, essentially what you're telling us is that Sunil Gavaskar minced no words when he questioned certain decisions of the selection committee. What exactly irked him? Because clearly his views are now absolutely out in the open. There are certain decisions which he does not agree with, which has probably prompted him to go to the extent of calling the selectors lame ducks.
Right. And, the issue, of course, is not just who was selected in that team. That was one part of what Sunil Gavaskar was saying. But more importantly, Sunil Gavaskar thought it was incumbent upon the selectors to be the ones to, sort of question the captain about the team's performance and his own performance at the World Cup in England, where India finished in the semi-finals, having lost to New Zealand. But, even that comment from Sunil Gavaskar is being questioned because Sanjay Manjrekar tweeted very soon after that column was put out, respectfully disagreeing, going on to say that, India basically had two bad games in the World Cup. One is the match against England and the other was the semi-final where they just got completely outplayed.
All right, Alan Sippy joining us on the phone line. Alan, good morning. I want to ask you here that, it seems as if Mr. Gavaskar here is telling us that the selectors have got arm twisted by the coach and the captain. Viren tells us that MSK Prasad is very clear. That's just how it works. What is wrong with it? Where do you stand on this?
Good morning. Yeah, I mean, you see, I feel bad because great Gavaskar here is actually, he's been wrong with the way he said about the stature, because there's nothing about stature here. It's not only stature. You have to have integrity. I agree what Manjrekar has said on this point, because it's some people don't. If they have not played cricket, it doesn't mean they don't have the right to be a selector. And here Gavaskar has just gone a little bit, over the top by saying harsh words to MSK Prasad and the selectors, because I think they've been doing a decent job. Just because India's lost 2 games out of 9 in the World Cup, that doesn't mean that, we have to be so harsh and, criticize personally. This is a personal attack against selectors.
Right.
And if you look at, if I just go on one more point, if you look at past cricketers, for example, people who have done so well playing domestic, people like Amol Mazumdar, people like Paddy Shivalkar, of the great people of the past. Imagine if they were selectors. Are you talking that they don't have stature just because they're not played cricket? You know, there are people like he said in Australia who have played one test match, and yet they're big people. You know, they're top cricketers. So you can't just say Gavaskar's completely wrong here. And I feel bad because he's such a great cricketer, Mr. Gavaskar. So here I think he's got a little bit out of hand here by saying lame ducks and being harsh on these guys because it's not fair.
Right. Right. So Alan Sippy there believes this is rather harsh. Over to you, Viren. Could you just carry on this conversation, because I want you to take it forward from the perspective of the fact that the selectors, the trust deficit somewhere that is being displayed here, that must be also addressed. And I think MSK Prasad has made a very strong statement on their cornerstones that the selectors go by when they make their decisions.
That's right. You know, Alan, it's very rare that you and Sanjay Manjrekar agree on something, but it seems as far as this is concerned, both of you are on the same page. And, you know, one thing he echoes as well is integrity. Because, you know, Alan, we've seen, and I'm sure you're testament to that as well, of people who are, you know, quote unquote, on high pedestals, who've been legends of the sport, perhaps, who've served Indian cricket great, you know, very well in their playing days. But then they're very, you know, they get caught up in the politics of it all. And therefore, Sanjay Manjrekar here talking, you know, so much about the integrity of these five wise men who picked the team, rather than what their stature was, what they did for in the Indian team, and perhaps what they could have done in domestic cricket.
Absolutely. You know, Viren is right, but I don't want to praise Sanjay Manjrekar because it's, you know, it's about Gavaskar. I'm a little bit disappointed with Gavaskar because, you know, Gavaskar's entitled because everybody listens to Gavaskar. He's such a powerful voice in Indian cricket. So when Gavaskar talks to people listen, and that's why, you know, we're talking about this because he's such a great man. So here I think Gavaskar, more than anything else, has gone a little bit out of hand because what he's trying to, when he uses the word lame ducks and when he says stature, I think he's wrong on this point simply because, you know, you don't have to have only stature to be a selector. If you're honest enough and you're actually watching cricket in the right manner, you don't really need the stature. You need to have integrity. That's the word. You need to have integrity and you have to do the job in the right manner because whatever job you do in life, whether it's a selector or whether it's working in an office, you just don't have the stature. You have to have integrity. You have to be honest to yourself that you're doing the best for your country, the best for your office.
Right, well said, Alan Sippy there. You know, Afidaz, I'll toss it back to you. That's where we stand, but this is perhaps not the last we're going to hear of this. Sanjay Manjrekar's weighed in, Alan's weighing in as well here. Sunil Gavaskar's comments not necessarily going down too well. We used to Gavaskar having a very strong opinion about things, but it seems in this case, at least quite a few cricketers seem to
I'd like to quickly bring in Atul Vasan as well. Atul Vasan, if you could hear the conversation, we're talking about Sunil Gavaskar's comments and the response now that has come from MSK Prasad, where he clearly sounds hurt, in fact, to a certain extent, that the integrity of the selectors are being questioned to a certain extent. A very harsh term of lame duck being used for the selectors.
I don't think so that their integrity was questioned when this lame duck comment was made by Sunil Gavaskar. I think it's in the context of not being strong enough to push certain players who have been persisted with some kind of plan which is not apparent to anybody. What is the plan? And, you know, there are some questionable selections happening and certain line of exit plans of certain players are not defined. That's why probably the former players are feeling a bit frustrated because they've been watching and commentating on all formats of the game, and they feel that this set of selectors has not taken the bold decisions that might be required for pushing India through.
Okay. So Atul Vasan there believes that these decisions are taken in the larger interest, but sometimes, you know, two people may not agree. Unfortunately, the decision makers are the ones who are going to have the final word in this. We have to leave it at that. Viren Farao, Alan Sippy and Atul Vasan, thanks very much for joining us with your views on this.